Hey, Mama. So if you've been listening to this podcast for some time, then you know I talk a lot about building a business that fits your current season of life and really knowing and honoring your capacity as a mom and business owner. As moms, we honestly cannot afford to ignore our current capacity or else we will literally put ourselves on the fast track to burnout city. And that is not what we want. So in today's episode, I actually chat with an expert on business capacity and calculating your capacity, and that is Amanda McKinney. Amanda shares so many great insights in how your business capacity impacts your goals and how to calculate your capacity. She also shares about her capacity calculator, which you can actually grab for free, either down below in the episode description or over in the show notes. Now, I have to warn you, talking to Amanda and really hearing her voice honestly feels like a warm hug. Like anytime I talk to her, I just come back so refreshed. Like I was actually a guest on her podcast and she just creates such a welcoming environment. And even like as a guest on my podcast, like it was that exact same feeling. So, anyways, I know you're going to gain so much from this interview and walk away with an even deeper understanding of the importance of knowing and honoring your capacity as a mom in business. All right, let's jump into today's episode. Hey, Mama. Are you tired of feeling stressed and overwhelmed trying to grow your online business with your babies at home? You desire more flexibility in your day, allowing you to pour into your family, yourself, and your business without running yourself into the ground. Mama, you can build your dream business and do it in a way that fits your current season of life. And I'm going to show you exactly how. Welcome to the Mama Turned Mompreneur podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Singletary, daughter of the king, wife, mama of two, and life and business coach for mompreneurs. On this podcast, you will learn business strategies made for mamas just like you, who desire to be successful CEOs and fully present mamas without stress or overwhelm. So whether you're an entrepreneur who transitioned to a mompreneur or a mama turned mompreneur, I am here to support you. So grab your coffee, notebook, and pen, put in those earbuds, and let's dig in. All right. Today on the Mama Turned Mompreneur podcast, I am sitting down to chat with Amanda McKinney, and we are talking all about capacity, your business capacity as a mom in business. So Amanda, welcome to the show. Please tell us about yourself, who you are, what you do, and all about your family.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrea, for having me today. I am thrilled to be on this podcast. I love what you create. It was such a pleasure to have you on my podcast. So thank you for being a guest there as well. And gosh, just getting to know you in the little bit that I have, it's such a pleasure to stay connected. And I have no doubt the listeners of this podcast are similar, and I'm excited to connect with them. So I am an accountability coach for people who struggle with follow through. And can't we all say that we do that? I mean, we create these beautiful plans and we sit down and think about our business and the vision and all of these things. And if you're anything like me, you got the pretty Post-its and everything feels really exciting when you create that plan. But it's when life happens, which you talk about all the time, that throws you off course, and it's really hard to stay on the implementation track. And so that's what I really help people do. And I do that in the container of one-on-one coaching as well as within groups. So a few masterminds, I'm the accountability coach within that mastermind group or different things like that. So it's a really fun thing that I get to do. And I get to see people navigate challenges in their life and in their business and actually continue to make progress, which is remarkable. It's like a dream job. I cannot believe that I get to do this. So that is a little bit about me and my business.
Yes, I absolutely love that and love the work that you do. And so, as you know, I talk a lot about, building a business that fits your current season of life and building your business in a way that honors your capacity. And that's something that you support your clients with as well. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on capacity and honoring your capacity as you build your business.
Yes, let's dig in. And I have to apologize. I did not answer one of the questions you asked me, but it leads into capacity really well. So it's perfect. And you asked me about my family. And so I am married and I have two stepkids, and they are adults now. So they are no longer in the house. But when I joined the family and became the stepmom, I jumped right in to the craziness of middle school. And, I was still doing like pick up and drop off and all of those things. And so the reason I'm saying this now, one, because you asked me, but two, because it really plays into capacity, which is, had you asked me what my capacity was 7 years ago when I started my business, almost 8 now, that I would have said, oh, I have this many hours in a day and it's kind of choppy because I have all these things. Whereas now I have a lot more flexibility because I don't have to do the pickup and the drop off. It doesn't mean my life is less busy, certainly not, but I don't have the time constraints that I used to. And so, like you really alluded to there, it's the seasons of our life and how we have to shift with those. And I think sometimes, I don't know about you, but with my clients, when I see the person who has a very short amount of time in the day, they actually end up being more productive. So sometimes I'm a little jealous of those people.
Yes, definitely see that.
Yeah. So when we think about capacity, it's really like giving yourself that grace, which again, you talk about, which is why I'm so excited that we get to have this conversation, because you and I speak very similar in terms of honor the capacity that you have, because it's not going to be that season forever. And everything is so seasonal in terms of, you get to cuddle with that little one for a little bit. And you probably think, I was actually just on a walk with one of my friends who has a little baby. And we were on a walk because that's what I get to do with her now, right? Because she doesn't have as much time. And so we went on a walk. Someone else was watching the kid, and she was like, I hold this little baby, and I think, gosh, I know this is going to go away, so I need to be really present in this moment. But she was like, but my mind goes to, but I need to be doing these things when he's taking a nap. And that internal struggle that we have, and just giving ourselves that grace of, this is a season. I want to honor the season, but also knowing what's the priority so that you can continue to move your business forward as well. Because everyone listening is likely a mom in some capacity or a caregiver in some capacity, but also really excited about building a business. And you can have both. But you just have to obviously honor that capacity and know that your time is a little different than other people's.
Yes, yes. It's so true. I like a lot of the women who listen to this podcast, and if you're a business owner in general, like, you are ambitious, you're driven and everything. And so we try to take full advantage of those little pockets of time that we have, oh, the kids are napping, or, oh, the kids are playing quietly right now, what can I get done in those few moments and everything. But like you are saying, like, they're only little for so long, like, they grow so quickly. And so, again, just remembering what those priorities are and being able to enjoy those moments and be present with your kids, and knowing that, as they do get older, you will be able to do more and everything. And so you actually have a capacity calculator. And so you could talk about it here too, but I would love to know, like, how do you support your clients with calculating their capacity? Like, do you have a specific formula or process that you use?
Oh, I do. You know it. But the funny part is, I think, and I speak so openly about this because, especially with your audience that is entrepreneurs, it's like, I say, of course I did. I have this formula now, but I didn't always have that. And so give yourself grace in that too. I didn't create this calculator and I didn't create this formula before I worked with clients. What I found was I was working with clients and I realized that there was a real struggle and a real gap with goal setting and following through. And I was like, what's going on here? And I worked with a ton of clients. I mean, hundreds upon hundreds of clients, which I'm so grateful for. And the benefit was I had the experience and could look backwards. And so what I did is I really looked at coaching notes and all of these things. And I thought, what is it about the clients who often hit or exceed their goals versus the ones who don't. And I really started to dig into that. And I promise that this leads into capacity. But what I found was we actually are taught to set our goals in a way that really sets us up for failure. And so what I realize is that it starts with the goal setting. Now, I'm a big fan of 90-day goals, so I'm going to hone in on that. But I do want to say, there's a great benefit in dreaming big. And that big vision of what you want to do in your business, or I work with a lot of people who are like, I want to start a nonprofit one day. Doesn't matter what you want to do. That big dream is awesome. But in order to get to that big dream that you don't really know how to get to right now, the big thing is often the thing that we're so scared of. It's like, I don't even see the path. But in order to get there, you have to take smaller steps, which is where those 90-day goals come in. And so if you have this big vision, it's great. And then you say, okay, well, what can I do in the next 90 days to get me one step closer to that dream? Even if I don't know how to get to the big thing, but what's the thing that I can actually attain? That is where I found that capacity is so important. So we are taught to set the goal, whether it's an annual goal, a 90-day goal, doesn't matter the time frame. We are taught to set the goal and then plot it on the calendar. That's where those pretty Post-its come in. I love them. I've got a calendar on my wall too, right? We all love our system of how we do it. But that sets us up for failure because what we're doing is we're setting a goal based on a hypothetical amount of time that we have. Now we're saying it's 90 days, it's 1 year, it's whatever the concrete number is, but we don't actually have that amount of time. And that's what I realized. And so several years ago, I went through this exercise. I had a membership at the time and I said, okay, we're going to actually, and I didn't use the phrase calculate your capacity, but it's nice now, right? Well, we're going to look at what actual time you have. And so the formula really came up in the few steps, and it's very, very simple. And I created the calculator, which you can link in the show notes. It's absolutely free, but I'll tell you the steps to do right now. The calculator just makes it easier because I've already done the math for you. You just put in your numbers and it'll spit out the number. So basically what you have to do is the first step is to identify how much time you can dedicate to a specific goal. And sometimes this is your actual work time. So you work with people that might have 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week that they can work towards a goal and work on their business. It could be that entire amount of time. And that's something that, again, it goes back to that capacity, but you have to understand how much you can really work on your business, right? But sometimes you've got other things going on in your business. For example, you have a podcast. There are actions you have to take in order to get that podcast up and running every single week or however often you do it, right? And so you already have things on your plate. So if you're working towards a new goal, you don't have all of your work time to dedicate to that goal. So what you could say is, I have 2 hours a week to work towards this new thing. Instead of the 10 hours of all the work time, you actually only have 2 hours a week or something like that. I'm giving a hypothetical example, but the key is to know what you can dedicate your time to so that you understand how to set a more realistic goal, because otherwise you're just going to set yourself up for failure. So that's the first thing, is know how much time per week you can dedicate to this goal. And then the second step is to identify the timeline. I highly recommend 90-day goals. If you're doing this every month, it's going to be a nightmare and you're going to feel like you're doing it all the time. And if you're doing it once a year, you're probably going to be off track. So I recommend 90 days. A lot of people do. I'm not the only one. So if you set 90 days, you've got 3 months. It also helps with seasonality, especially when you do have kids. You can account for summer and holidays and all of these things within that. So if you've got 2 hours a week and you're got 12 weeks, right? Because you're going to do 90 days. So that's the 2 steps. And then the third step is where it starts to get into the math. So if you go in, so the third step is actually subtracting any days that you cannot work. Because remember, we're starting with 90 days and we think in our mind, oh my gosh, I can conquer the world in the next 90 days. And I'm saying this because I think this, right? I can do everything in 90 days, but we have to understand how much time we actually have. And so you take that 90 days and you subtract weekends, you subtract days you cannot work. Now, I've done this with hundreds of people, so I'm giving a general statement here, and you have to do your own math, which is where the calculator comes in. But generally speaking, when someone takes out weekends, vacation time, and days off because of doctor's appointments and all the things that happen in life, it generally takes it down to between 50 and 60 days. 50 is more in the summer. It could even be less than that. So we're taking more time off in the summer or holiday time. But generally speaking, you knock off a whole month. So if you're looking at 90 days and you think I can do it all, you actually take away about a month when you take out weekends and vacations. That's usually the aha moment where everyone's like, oh my gosh. And you realize in that moment, oh, I can set a more realistic goal. But there's one more step. The fourth step is to really take into account that there's other days. It's not full days, right? It's like you've got camp or doctor's appointments or whatever the case is that's like a few hours here and there, and it eats into that time again, or whatever the case is. And so you really have to take into account those times as well. It's a little harder because it's hours instead of days, but you can really do this. And that's where the calculator comes in. You put your amount of time in there and it spits out a number that basically gives you a number of days or a number of hours, whatever works for you, to then ask yourself. So once you go through those 4 steps, you then ask yourself, what can I do in 200 hours? 30 days, whatever the number is for you, to get me one step closer to that big vision. And that's when you can really set a realistic goal that is actually possible for you to hit.
Wow. I absolutely love that. And like how you break it down and really like, again, looking at realistically the time you have available. Because it's so true. We don't always think about all those random things like the kids getting sick or, last month when my son started school, I got a phone call that he got a splinter in his finger and they can't remove the splinter. So I had to come up there with tweezers to remove it for him and everything. That wasn't something that I had accounted for happening and whatnot. And so it's like those little things like we don't always think about or we can't necessarily plan for, and it will impact your goals. You know, it will impact you being able to take those steps to move towards, you know, completing those goals and everything like that. And so this calculator sounds amazing. I'm definitely going to download it and utilize it. And so, yeah, that is so amazing. And so I would love to hear, like, do you have any specific like client stories or examples of you, supporting a client like with using this calculator, and like what was the outcome, like what results were they able to achieve by really looking at, okay, this is the time I actually have available?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I can talk about so many. But you did bring up one thing that I should probably address, and I'll put a note in the calculator. So I'm going to update this as soon as we get off this call. So because one of the things that I do when I'm with someone, and we just actually talked about it and you did it on your own, but it's hard to remember when you're completely by yourself, is the buffer time. So that 4th step of like subtracting those hours and figuring things out. And it's when you have it on the calendar, it's easy to do that. But the buffer time, and you can decide what your percentage is of like 10% buffer time, 20% buffer time, like subtracting some more based on probably what you have going on in your life in that season. So if you have young kids, like we're recording this in September, and I feel like so many meetings get canceled or rescheduled in August and September because kids go back to school and everyone gets sick.
Yeah.
So let's just call attention to that. And like the splinter thing, I mean, that could happen anytime, but it's like account for that. When you know your kids are going back to school, just know in the first 30 days, someone's getting sick.
Yes.
And so account for that. And so give yourself that buffer time. So thank you for doing that. I'll put a note in the calculator so that everyone knows like to put a buffer time in there too. So like subtract that out. But in terms of clients, the biggest thing is this idea of understanding that we have to know our time and be realistic about it. Like the honesty is the biggest thing. If you can't be honest with yourself about the time that you have, you're basically setting yourself up for failure all the time. And that's a hard thing to hear. And it sounds silly when you hear someone like myself saying, like, be honest about your time. But we lie to ourselves all the time about what we could do. So I do it. You probably do it. Like we all do it. There's no shame here. But the more honest you can be and the more you can say, like, it's okay that Sally down the street has more time than I do in this season. And this is the time I have, and I'm going to make the most of it. So that's really one thing. The next thing is being honest about what you actually want to do. And that's a whole other conversation that we could probably have. But let's throw the shoulds out the window and not worry about that anymore and say, what do you actually want to do? And that's how I work with clients. And when you say, like, do I have client stories? Most of my client stories are that permission giving of what do you actually want to do? And once you know what you want to do and the time that you have to dedicate to that thing, all the clients hit the goal. I mean, does it take longer than they want? Yeah, absolutely it does. Is it hard? Yes, it's absolutely hard. The plan never goes according to plan, but they achieve the goal because they realize what they really want. A fantastic example that I have of this, she's probably the one I share the most. Her name is Christine, and she came to me after I published my book. And she said, and thank you again for buying my book. I just remember, I just had a heartwarming moment of that again, just remembering. So thank you.
You're welcome.
She came to me, I had worked with her previously, and she came to me after I published my book and she said, Amanda, I have wanted to publish a book for years. I mean, years. And she was like, I think you can help me do it. And I was like, sure. I was like, I'm not a book coach. I don't know what you're looking for, but I can hold you accountable to actually getting across the finish line for sure. And so she did. She is a published author now, and I'm happy to share that she is. But the important part was really her understanding her time. And that's what we really worked on at the beginning is she was like, okay, she had been kind of writing here and there every now and then on this book. A lot of writers do that. She's running a business. She has young kids. And her business is super successful. Like she's built it up over time. She's doing really well, but she doesn't have a team of people. She has a few contractors, but it's not like she could just shut off her business and not do those things. Like she wanted to have a launch of her community at one point when she was finishing this. And so we really mapped out, okay, what can you actually do? And she had holidays planned because she is not in the US. And so I feel like every other country, they take like month-long holidays. And I'm like, I don't know why we're not doing this here, but we need to be doing it.
Yeah.
And so we were navigating like lots of family time and travel and her kids, and the kids are off for the summer and all of this stuff. But we worked together for 90 days during this one heavy period and went a little bit longer to get her across the finish line. And she did it. She did that. And like, I think it ended up being 5 months instead of 3. But publishing is kind of difficult because you've got to deal with like timing of that. So it kind of stretched it out. But she totally did it after like 10 years of thinking about the book.
Wow. That is amazing.
Yeah, I'm super proud of her. And I can go on and on about so many of my clients, starting the podcast that they've thought about for so long, but were worried about sharing their voice. Or there's usually an underlying thing of, I don't have time, I don't have money, I'm not good enough. Those a broad sweeping thing, but those are generally the things that are underlying. But once you realize this is what I want to do, it's all about understanding, okay, how much time do you have? And holding yourself accountable or finding the support you need. All of my clients are like, I didn't think I needed it, but I do. And here I am. And find the support you need. And so that you can navigate the bumpy stuff. You talk about this all the time. There's always going to be bumpy stuff in life. And so there's no way that it's going to go perfectly according to plan, but it's possible to keep going.
Yes. And I really love what you said about figuring out what you actually want to do. I think that's where so many of us struggle. We're looking at what everyone else is doing or what people are telling us what we should be doing, when in reality, they're not things we actually want to do. And if it's not something you want to do, well, you're not going to be motivated to do it.
Right.
So first, really figuring out, okay, what is it that I actually want to do? Like, what do I want my business to look like? Like, what are my business goals and everything? And so figuring out that first, that's going to get you so much further than just trying to do everything. Like you said, all of the shoulds.
Yeah, it's just too hard. I mean, and we all fall into it. So I always really try to hone in and say and remind everyone, like, you'll hear me talk about this, but it doesn't mean I don't fall into the same trap.
Yeah.
I just catch it a little bit more because I hear it so often. And I have people in my corner who catch it for me. So I have coaches, I have biz besties, I have people that are like, Amanda, you said you wanted to do this thing, but you're talking about this other thing now. And I'm like, you're right. It's because I heard it on a podcast and now I got it. I thought I had to do it. And so we all do it, and we just have to learn how to catch it and figure and get that support. Like I say, like I tell my husband things, I tell my biz bestie things, I tell my coaches things, and I give those people permission. When I tell, there's specific people in my life, especially the ones I pay, like the coaches, right? That I'm like, you have permission to call me out. I need it. That is the type of coaching I need, because I will do. I don't have a problem doing. I can take action, and it'll hurt me sometimes because I'll just go really quickly on a project. And a lot of people are like that. Some are not. If you're not, that's a gift. Just know that is a gift too. And I have to catch it early, or I'll start down a train that I don't even need to be on that track, because it takes me off, of course.
Yes, yes. So there's one question I love to ask my guest, and I want to know, who is one coach or mentor who has had a major impact on your journey as an entrepreneur?
Ooh, this is I mean, how do I pick one? That is so hard.
Yeah.
That is, I'm sure there's a lot, but I'm sure that everyone says that. Like, it's so hard.
Yes.
Gosh, the one. I'm really toying between two, and it's two books that I read often. So very rarely do I read the same book over and over and over again. But there's two that I frequent a lot. And so I would probably say one of these two people. Can I give two?
Yes, you can give two.
Okay. So the two, there's a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. It is a fantastic book. I think, especially when we're talking about parents, I think, gosh, man, if you can teach this to your kids, well, I think it should be in school. Because it's basically talking about a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And you can learn to have a growth mindset. And I'll just stick with, I mean, there is another book, but I should probably just hang on to that one. I'll say that one because I would say it's not just business, but it has transformed everything, right? When I can really think about it, because there's a lot of failure in business. I fail way more than I succeed in terms of things I try, goals I set and don't hit, that sort of thing. But I don't consider myself a failure at all, because I look at every single thing as an opportunity to learn. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt, just to be clear. Those days suck pretty bad when there's a moment or days or weeks or months or years sometimes where it feels like, gosh, nothing is working. But I try really hard to look at everything as like, okay, well, what did I learn in that? How can I do better with it next time, or let it go? And so that growth mindset is so important in business, but it's also so important in life. And if you can, gosh, teach your kids this, I just think, man, what a gift that would be.
Yeah, that's awesome. I heard of that book, actually. One of my clients, she works in the STEM space. Like she coaches STEM teachers. And so she has a book club, and that's one of the books that she has them read because she's really big about instilling that growth mindset in the kids that they work with and everything. So I'm definitely adding that to my list because you're the second person I've heard about how good it is.
It's really good. You'll enjoy it. I know you will, just because of how you think. And it's really fascinating. And what and it was, I don't know when it was written, maybe the 80s or something, 90s. It was a long time ago in terms of like, it's not a new book. It's phenomenal though. I mean, it holds true to time, and it's a really good thing. And like I said, it goes across all areas of your life. And I talked about this. Someone interviewed me on a podcast about this idea of a growth mindset once. And I said, I have a really good growth mindset in business stuff. So I'm much better there. However, there are absolutely areas in my life that feel more fixed. So it's not an overall thing. I mean, it is basically like if I said, overall, what do I have? I have more of a growth mindset than I do a fixed one. But you can pinpoint things in your life that's like, oh, I do get fixated on that one though. And so just saying, when you start to read it, or whoever is listening starts to read it, like, don't be mean to yourself. It's fine. But you can learn to change it. And that's the key.
Yes, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. This was such a good conversation. So many good nuggets that you shared. But before we get off, please share with listeners where they can connect with you and learn more about working with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrea, for having me. I'm having such a moment in my heart of just gratitude for you and for everyone listening. So thank you so much. You can find everything on my website at amandamckinney.com. And that calculator is completely free that you can go and get it. And it's at amandamckinney.com/calculator. Kept it really easy for you. So go get access to that. And then that gets you on my email list, which, I send weekly emails with inspirational messages like this and how to help yourself follow through and all of that good stuff. So you'll hear from me. And of course, how to work with me is on there as well. So everyone can find all the good stuff there.
All right. I will make sure to link all of that in the show notes. Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, Mama, that's a wrap on today's episode. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to hang with me. If you enjoyed today's episode, will you do me a favor and follow the podcast and leave a review? Hitting that follow button and sharing your thoughts about the podcast are the best ways to ensure that other mamas like you find this show. Your review also lets me know if you're enjoying this podcast, so make sure to share your thoughts before you go. All right, Mama, I'll catch you in the next episode.